Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jordan. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for stopping by. So if you clicked on this video, it was because you were interested in this lens right here. This is the Laowa 100mm f2.8 macro 2x 2:1. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and just start off with price. So if you're going to buy one of these new, they are $4.99 brand new, and they do come with a lens hood as well as a UV filter. Now, not really 100% sure why they include a UV filter, but the only thing I can think of is possibly if you are filming or doing photos of maybe a small insect or plant or an animal, that they don't just kind of like wander into the lens itself and get stuck in there. So the next thing I'm going to cover is the mounting options. Now, this does work with the Canon EF and the RF. There is also the Sony E mount, the Nikon Z mount, and the Nikon F mount. So this I actually purchased for the Canon RF mount specifically. I probably should have purchased it for the Canon EF mount. Main reason why I say that is because I can adapt it to the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. I can also use a Canon EF mount on my Canon Rebel T7. So I actually would have had three bodies I could have used this with, but for some reason I wound up purchasing the RF mount, mostly because I found this used on B&H Photo. You could probably find these used on eBay and stuff too, but I think I paid roughly about $375, $380. So you could probably find these used anywhere between 350 and 400, maybe give or take a little bit more or less depending. Now, the build quality on this is pretty much all metal. I'm going to say possibly aluminum. I'm not really 100% sure. There wasn't really a lot of information on the website when I was looking at this, but I mean, it's pretty solid metal. It's pretty hefty and it weighs roughly about 1.4 pounds or 635 grams. So you might want to take that into consideration if you are carrying a lot of equipment. Let's say maybe if you're going out to a forest or out in your backyard, you might just want to travel light, depending. So as far as aperture ranges go on this, this goes from an f2.8 all the way up to an f22. Now I will say at an f2.8, there is a pretty heavy vignette. Basically, once you stop it down to an f4, it kind of clears up, and then by about f8, it pretty much disappears. Now, once you get into the f16 and f22 range, you're going to notice that there is pretty much a softening of the image. I mean, let's be honest, due to diffraction. So another thing that I do want to comment on this about this lens specifically too, really quick, I do want to mention that there is no autofocus and there is no image stabilization. So if you are going to be hand holding this, you're definitely going to want to have a very fast shutter speed. No autofocus, and I will say as far as the focusing ring goes, it is pretty tight. Not necessarily like so tight that you can't turn it, but I'm thinking the reason why it is this tight is basically because you're using small increments to focus at a 1:1 or a 2:1 macro. So just take that into consideration as well. Also, there is no chromatic aberration that I have seen with this lens. There is also no color fringing. I mean, even shooting into like direct sunlight, there really isn't a whole lot. There is lens flares though, so that is something that you're going to have to consider too when you are purchasing this lens. So as far as close focusing goes, I actually shot at a 2:1. I used a little Lego action figure and I got a tape measure, and so basically as far as I could tell at a 2:1 I could get roughly just around 3 inches as close as possible with this lens, because on B&H's website when I was looking at this lens, I believe somewhere in there it said the closest focusing distance was 9.7 inches, but I got a tape measure and I basically just kind of set up a little Lego guy, set this on a tripod, and from a 2:1 from the front of the lens all the way to the Lego guy, I mean, it was 3 inches basically, pretty much. I mean, it was a little bit shorter than 3 inches, but that's what I found. So you get a pretty usable range of how close you can actually focus with this lens specifically. Now, I did bring this outside and shoot with the lens hood on, which it does help reduce lens flares. But if you're getting pretty close to something, you are going to probably knock into that with the lens hood. Just be aware of that. So this thing is ridiculously sharp, even at an f2.8. I mean, I generally shoot between an f5.6 and an f11 anyways. But if you are shooting at an f2.8, the depth of field is going to be razor thin, just so you know. So probably going to want to shoot on something like a tripod or a monopod. If you are outside doing some handheld shooting, you might just want to consider using a tripod or a monopod of some sort. Um, Other than that, I mean, basically, as you stop down through the apertures, the depth of field just gets bigger and bigger. So, I mean, roughly at an f5.6 to an f8 or an f11, I mean, you're pretty much going to get almost everything in focus anyways. I mean, if you want to get an absolute tack sharp image and getting everything in focus, f22 is going to be where you're going to want to be sitting with that anyways. So you are probably going to need a tripod, and you probably are going to want to use some sort of a flash system as well. So it is entirely up to you. Sometimes when I'm shooting macro, I actually wind up using this system right here. So with the Laowa 100mm macro on there, I have my wireless flash controller, and then I just kind of hand hold my flash out in front. You can still use a flash in the hot shoe. So just real quick, this right here is from the dollar store. This is a party tablecloth. They're $1. You can get diffusion from these. I mean, basically, for $1, well, I guess $1.50 now with inflation, but anyways, still not reasonably expensive, especially you're not breaking the bank for just something to diffuse the flash with. This right here, honestly, I can guarantee you produces a much better result than just having the flash by itself without any sort of diffusion on it. I will say, for the most part, if you are going to be using a flash on your camera in the hot shoe position without a wireless controller, you are going to want to have something that is either going to bounce the flash down or diffuse the light specifically. This does have like a little bounce card that I can pull up out of here. I probably could just pull that out and then rewrap this and everything. I will say this, if you're going to just use a setup like this, you're going to want something that's going to bounce the light down and towards your subject. So maybe even just taking like a piece of cardboard from like a cereal box or something and just taping it on here. If this flash isn't like your every go-to everyday like flash for stuff that you use, maybe like for portraits and stuff, if you just have like a crappy old flash that still works, you could probably get away with just, you know, taping like, yeah, I've even seen people use Pringle cans and use a Pringle can that kind of like directs the light out towards that way. Just something to consider if you are going to be using a flash in like a hot shoe mount like this for macro. It's a little bit more gear, but if you plan on just hand holding the flash or even putting it onto a light stand, having a wireless controller like this, just being able to set this onto a tripod, set it up, and then just kind of hand hold the flash for whichever way you want to shoot is also a pretty decent option. Just something to consider. And so that's pretty much it, guys. If you guys like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you didn't like this video, also give it a thumbs up. I would say for the price, if you can purchase one of these used, it is probably going to be better in the long run because it's going to be less cost. Like I said, I purchased mine from bnhphoto.com from their used section. B&H grades all of their used equipment from like a 1 to a 9, so like obviously if it's graded as like a 2 or 3, if you don't want to purchase it at that price, then by all means just kind of pass it up. But it is nice that B&H grades their stuff like that. I actually really like B&H. I haven't had any issues with them whatsoever. So like I said, if you guys like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you didn't like it, also give it a thumbs up, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons. I'm Jordan. I'm gonna catch you guys next time. Peace.